All right, y'all. Chapter 15 of the things for which men and princes in particular are praised or blamed. It remains now to discuss what methods and measures a prince should employ with his subjects or friends. Many have written about this, and I fear I might be considered presumptuous, particularly as I intend to depart from the principles laid down by others. As I mentioned, as my intention is to write something useful for discerning minds, I find it more fitting to seek the truth of the matter rather than imaginary conceptions. Many have imagined republics and principalities to have never been seen or heard of, because how one lives and how one ought to live are so far apart that he who spurns what is actually done for what ought to be done will achieve ruin rather than his own preservation. Because how one lives and how one ought to live are so far apart that he who spurns what is actually done for what ought to be done will achieve ruin rather than his own preservation. A man who strives to make a show of correct comportment in every circumstance can only come to ruin among so many who have other designs. Hence, it is necessary for a prince who wishes to maintain his position to learn how to be able not to be good, and to use or not use this ability according to circumstances. So hence it is necessary for a prince who wishes to maintain his position to learn how to be able not to be good, and to use or not to use this ability according to circumstances. Casting aside imagined things about a prince, and considering only things that are true, I argue that all men, particularly princes, since they have a higher position, are judged by qualities that attract praise or blame. This is why some princes are considered generous and others miserly. One is regarded as a giver and the other as a taker. One is seen as cruel and other as merciful. One faithless, the other faithful. One effeminate and pusillanimous, the other fierce and spirited. One humane, the other haughty. One lascivious, the other chaste. One frank, the other sly. One rigid, the other flexible. One grave, the other jovial. One religious and the other unbelieving, and so on. I know everyone will maintain that it would be commendable for a prince to have all the qualities I have just mentioned that are held to be good. But because a prince cannot wholly have or espouse all these qualities, as a human condition will not allow it, he must be wise enough to know how to evade the infamy of the qualities that are thought to be bad, which will cause him to lose his state. So he must be wise enough to know how to evade the infamy of the qualities that are thought to be bad, which will cause him to lose his state. If possible, he should always avoid the qualities which are considered bad, but will not actually lose him his state. Okay, so you're right. But if he must indulge in them, he need not concern himself about their consequences. He also should not concern himself about incurring the infamy of qualities that are considered bad if he needs them to save his state. For there are cases in which people might think a certain path is valor, but following it would be the prince's ruin, while there are also cases in which a certain way might seem evil, but following it will result in the prince's safety and well-being. So, there are cases in which people might think a certain path is valorous, but following it will be the prince's ruin, or there are also cases in which a way might seem evil, but following it will result in the prince's safety and well-being. Okay, so we break that down. Or not to be too much of a goody two-shoes, in a sense. Is that what they're talking about? Kind of knowing when and where to use your aggression and your assertiveness. Yeah, that was the end of chapter 15.